I had an idea that starting a startup dental office was going to be challenging, but I've never worked this hard in my life. It's like a 24-hour situation. Before I opened, I felt like I kind of had some idea of it, but I really didn't know what I was getting into until I got into it. And a very big learning curve for sure.
All right, joining me this week is Pooja Makam from Lumina Dentistry. Pooja, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your week been?
Honestly, we've had a good week. We've had a good week. I can't always say that, but so far so good.
What's been taking up most of your mental space lately?
Honestly, so many things. I mean, being a startup owner is really challenging. It pushes you to the limit. It makes you have to learn a lot of new skills that you're not used to. Trying to balance things has been really hard for me. I'm a mom. I have two young kids. And, I still feel like I'm always like behind on something. So trying to prioritize certain things has been really challenging, and just trying to anticipate growth in my practice and making sure that I have the right people in place for that growth has been a really big challenge lately.
Man, that's a lot on your mind this week out of everything. You mentioned balancing things. Real quick, you said a mother of two children.
Yeah, I have two girls. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's like as soon as I get home, I have a lot to do, and my weekends are very busy hanging out with them and my family, and trying to squeeze in some social time with friends. Sometimes it's definitely like been more challenging this past year. So we opened in July, so it's still very fresh, and I'm still learning every day. Like every single day is like a new challenge as a startup owner for sure.
Interesting. So when you think about ownership today, as opposed to like a little bit before July, what feels fundamentally different compared to earlier seasons?
So many things. I mean, I had an idea that starting a startup dental office was going to be challenging, but I've never worked this hard in my life. It's like a 24-hour situation. Before I opened, I felt like I kind of had some idea of it, but I really didn't know what I was getting into until I got into it. And a very big learning curve for sure.
So then why? Why did you want to do a startup or own your own practice?
I think, I had worked in corporate, and I also had worked in like some private practices. And I just always knew that I wanted to kind of be like an entrepreneur. I wanted to like have like a vision. I wanted my office to look a certain way. I wanted my patients to feel a certain way. And, I looked at buying another practice. I looked for like almost a year and a half, 2 years, and I just always felt like something was missing. Even in my associateships, I just felt like I never felt in the right place. Like I felt like I needed more. I knew it was going to be really challenging and really hard. Like I just knew that being an associate has its pros, but I felt like something was missing. So I decided to just kind of get out there and start the process of trying to start my own practice right after I had my second child. And I was like, okay, well, my family's complete, and I, really want to work on my career goals eventually. I didn't realize how hard that would be with such a young kid. Like I knew it would be tough, but it was a really, really challenging time for me, like trying to balance all the things. But I really didn't like where I worked. I felt like I wanted to figure out what was missing. And part of that was my spirit for entrepreneurship and really trying to start my own practice and like have my own brand and like my own style of taking care of patients and really setting myself apart. But also like a lot of my patients would constantly tell me like, why don't you start your own practice? It's so nice that you're not a corporate dentist. And I'm like, well, actually I am. And so that was also motivational for me too, because I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this job that I have right now. That was kind of like a push me to go ahead and take this deep dive. But I also like didn't like upper management constantly bothering everybody in the office. I didn't like my bosses or like company policies. I just felt like they weren't patient first. I felt like they were like just more corporate minded, which I get because it's profit. But that just wasn't for me. It just didn't match my philosophies on patient care.
Is it a pretty big corporation that you used to work at, or?
I worked at two different DSOs.
Gotcha. So two different DSOs. And from your associateships, what were some systems that you're like, I really want to take this and maybe tweak it or just use it in my own practice? And what were some things where you're like, I never want to do this. I never want to treat people like that or do things like this?
Okay, so I'll start with the first one. So I feel like there's a lot of systems that are helpful for practice. Like I didn't like how systematic things were in a corporate office, but now that I have my own office, I'm like, okay, I get why. It just helps everyone understand what their expectations are. Like, this is your job expectation. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what a new patient appointment looks like from start to finish, like 5 minute increment time explanations. And that honestly helps everybody have an understanding of what to anticipate for the day and for that patient appointment. So, like, systems for that are helpful. Things like making sure that every operatory has the same stuff, like the same materials, cuts down on like confusion and like distractions from an appointment. Like, you just stay in the room. Like, everything stays in the room. It doesn't go everywhere. So those are nice things. Having a good flow of people, right? So like the front desk greets the patient, checks them in and everything. And then the patient care coordinator at the end of the appointment talks about treatment planning and everything versus it being like super heavy on just the assistant. And it alleviates the burden for the assistant to like constantly do all those things, and they can like turn over a room and keep the flow of patient care going. So that's been helpful. Like efficiency, I think, is like the best way to describe it. Something that I didn't love is just like, I know I have to run a business. Like I know I have to like be somewhat profitable and keep growing, but like having constant like P&L reports like looked at and like missed opportunities constantly like shown to us, and like, it was just a lot of pressure to produce. And pretty much every upgrade, every technology was really to treatment plan more things and like sell more stuff, like Arrestin and adult sealants and Veloscope stuff. Like I was just like, this is just too much upselling. It becomes very salesy to patients, and I didn't want that.
Gotcha. So the efficiency you liked, and you're noticing it
Yeah.
now, but the
Yeah.
salesy part, the upselling. I mean, right now in your practice, do you have systems where you're like, we can maybe not the term upsell, but you're like, let's introduce that in a different way?
We have different amenities. So like our office offers, Botox and whitening, and we also offer like Invisalign. But I don't want to like have to constantly ask that patient, oh, do you want to do Botox? Do you want to do this? So in our comfort menu, when patients check in, at the bottom it says, would you like to discuss a brighter smile? Would you like to get more information about Botox? And would you like to straighten your smile? Very subtle ways about talking about kind of like typically not covered things from insurance. That doesn't feel like an upsell, but it feels more like they have opened the door. They have said, yes, I'd like to talk about it. And it makes it so much easier for us to discuss it. And for the sake of case acceptance, it's much easier. It feels better. They're interested in it. I don't have to do much. I just have to give them more information on it and let them make that decision for themselves if they want to do it.
That's smart. Like having them opening the door first, opening the
Right.
conversation first.
Exactly.
That's part of the patient experience, right? Like the initial new patient experience.
Exactly. So like we give them the comfort menu for every appointment. So I've found it kind of interesting. Like I initially didn't have those three options on my comfort menu, and I felt like I was doing so much talking about what we offer here. And I honestly have not spent enough time like on my social media and my website to like make that more known. So before they come in, they may not know about it. So I wish I had done more, and I probably will soon, but at least when they're initially here, it's nice to be able to very casually and very politely ask them if they're interested in those things. The patients have been very open to it. Like they're very excited to learn about like Botox and all that. And they're just shockingly very easy to let them know, like, hey, yeah, we could add Botox to your appointment if you'd like. And it takes about 10 minutes and then you're out the door. And they're like, okay, sure.
Nice, interesting. Is there anything with the patient experience as since July from now that you've been like testing? You've heard maybe on other episodes or maybe from somewhere else, you're like, I want to do that. But then you're realizing, hey, it doesn't fit with our flow.
When we first opened in July, like so much of what happened was like such a blur because I felt like I was putting out fires a lot. But we initially were doing like patient tours, like we'd walk them through the office and all of that when we first opened. Now that we're like a lot busier, we don't really have time for that. But if we do, I always like doing that and getting back to it. Something that we used to do was we didn't use the consult space very much. So we have a consult room in our office and we weren't using it much. Like we weren't bringing the patient over there to talk about like an extensive treatment plan. And we were doing it in the room and it was like in the clinical space and it was okay, but I felt like it was like, it felt a little impersonal. And so having like a space to discuss like actual cost and like being able to like show their pictures of what we were talking about really gave them an opportunity versus like sitting in like a dental chair and like laying back, feeling vulnerable and kind of overwhelmed. So we realized like, okay, we've got to wrap it up clinically and allow for time in the consult room with the patient care coordinator to very briefly talk about next steps.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I've heard like a mix of both of those things. Some people are like, just train the whole team to ask for something, right? And then
Yeah.
others who are like, no, the patient's going to feel overwhelmed in that room all the time for that long, transfer them to another room, right? And then it's like a breath of fresh air kind of for them.
Yeah, we do. I think they like it. It's not like, oh my God, how long have I been here for? And then also it allows us to like turn over the room for like the next patient and all those type of things. And like, you have to sit at their level and talk to them. And like, if you're talking about like thousands of dollars, like you don't want to be sitting in a dental chair talking about that.
Hmm. That's true. You mentioned at the beginning there were major fires, or there were a lot of fires you had to put out. What were like, if you could give us 2 to 3 major fires that you want to let us know if you're going to start, this is something you really got to hyper focus on?
There's a couple things. So like I really wish I had like gone through and did a longer like demo opening or like I did a soft opening, but it was more like to hang out with my friends and family and just introduce them to the space. But I wish I had done like 2 days of seeing patients, like friends and family, because we realized that like software issues, nothing didn't work. It was just very hard to like do an appointment quickly initially, like where to click, and like people are still learning the software. And then things like, oh, well, the piano machine isn't communicating with the computer, so we can't even take a piano. So, and so we had to call people, and they were very helpful and they quickly fixed our issues, but it created a lot of stress. And I kind of wish I had done like 2 days of like a rehearsal. And that I think would have helped with everybody understanding it. And I think initially I wish I had hired better. I honestly hired the wrong people and I didn't see red flags. And I was just trying to be really nice. And I was like, oh, they'll be fine. But that was a major thing for me, is not seeing those red flags. And I think that was very challenging because I never was really part of the hiring process, just like being corporate. Someone else hires everybody that I worked with. And so having to be the only person that does that was really hard, and understanding like what makes a good candidate and to weed out people who are not going to be a good fit for your culture and your team. It's like you need to do that very early on and make good decisions.
Interesting. What makes a good candidate in Pooja? Like, what were the red flags that you, looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, those were total red flags?
I think like letting them talk more in an interview. In my first like round of interviews with my first set of team members, I didn't really let them talk. I was like talking about my practice and like all the stuff and everything. And I didn't really challenge them on questions about like, oh, if this happened, like, what would you say? What would you do? I didn't even understand what questions to ask them, to be honest, and how to do that. I had some sample questions, but now that I'm like in it and actually seeing it from like a different view, like not just an associate, I'm seeing it from like, oh, how do you work well with someone telling you, oh, actually, can you go ahead and clean up this room instead of the other room because this patient prefers this one? Like how well they take direction or how well they handle unfamiliar situations. Since I am a startup, there's always things changing.
Interesting. So then, how many in your team previously, when you hired, have stayed on?
I have completely new team.
Really?
And they all had good references, like I called all their references. They had decent resumes. Yeah, none of those people are there. And I wish I had let them go earlier, to be honest. I think that's part of being an owner dentist. Like you're a dentist by profession because you like taking care of people and fixing things. And generally you're a nice person. And then having to kind of be on the other side, like the business side, and having to be like, yeah, this is not working. It's really hard. Like you feel really bad. And from what it sounds like, most business owners and dentists, we end up hanging on to these people a little too long, and it creates a lot of toxicity for the practice. I kind of wish I had been more aware of things and smart about just cutting ties. But I was very worried about not being able to do things on my own. Right? How will I still be able to see these patients without somebody to do this and that? And I think that was like making me hang on to situations. But, just being super aware of people are just not a great fit for your practice and your vision.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Pooja, because I feel like I would be scared what you mentioned, right? Like, oh man, I'm doing everything myself, but at the same time, I mean, they're part of the community. What if they tell the other people they don't like, you know what I mean? It could all
Yeah, I mean,
snowball.
I haven't had to like let anyone really go. I've just sort of been like, these are the expectations. This is what's been happening. If you're able to do these things, then we have a place on the team for you. But otherwise, it's just not working out.
And they
And
just leave.
yeah, I'm like, okay, that's makes it a little easier for us.
Interesting. Okay, so then if you can, it might be in that season or it might not, but take us back to a season where, or a situation where ownership felt heavier than it should have. Maybe like how did the weight of that show up in the day to day?
Sometimes when like toxic team members are there, because you walk in, they've already texted you that they're going to be late for this reason or that reason now, or they're calling out for the day. You're just like trying to figure out like how the heck you're going to make this day run smoothly, very last minute. And like you have so many things going on, like, oh, well, I still have time to run to the bank to like deposit a bunch of checks or like withdraw money or, like make a phone call to so and so. And you can't because now you don't have that person helping the team out. It's hard not to bring that worried energy into the room. And I've really had to work on that as a business owner, as a practice owner, as a leader for my team. I think I've had to really recognize that, like, me coming into the morning meeting, like, stressed out and like feeling negative about the day, like, God, this day's gonna suck. They're gonna feel that, and they feel like, oh my gosh, she's stressed out. And so they feel like the wheels are falling off the wagon too. So I've had to be like, okay, we've got this. Let's figure out how we're going to make this work. There's no other option. We have to figure out how this is going to work. And being able to delegate some of those things to other team members, that's meant like making sure people are somewhat cross trained in my office. It's a small practice. Like it's only myself. We have a hygienist on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We have two front desks, two dental assistants now. So, if we have one person down, like someone else has to be able to check patients in. You can't not know how to do that.
Mhm.
So we realized like, okay, everyone's going to be able to like pick up the phone and like confirm a patient, like those things are really important. So I had to like create expectations and cross training expectations. So like everyone has a copy of it and everyone is meant to do all those things.
Interesting. Okay, so you created like a system and manuals, right, for that to everybody to be
Exactly.
crossing.
Like these are cross training task lists. And basically during our downtime, if we have a cancellation or something or whatever, you are expected to like try to work on those things. Like, hey, let me show you how to do a predetermination, things like that. So everyone is somewhat cross trained. Like the front desk is not exactly trained to like, do what the dental assistants do, but
Mhm.
the dental assistants definitely get very involved in, picking up the phone, and some of them know how to do a little bit of insurance verification and everything. So they're really amazing and they really do a great job in like trying to be flexible and picking up where someone might be calling out sick or something like that. So that's been
Yeah,
helpful for a small team.
I like that. So then your team, you found them now, everybody where?
So actually, this is what I realized. Like a lot of people that I currently have on the team are references from people that I really liked in my team already. So, for example, I did some working interviews for dental assistants when I was looking for new dental assistants. Those dental assistants are now here. And once my front desk, she ended up moving, I had an opportunity arise, and my dental assistant was like, hey, I have a really good friend who is looking for a position. Maybe give her a call. And I was like, okay. And so that was amazing. And that's been a wonderful addition to our team. They already get along. She's very positive, my dental assistant, and she has a good head on her shoulders. I thought, okay, well, usually people who are well mannered and very kind and flexible and smart, they tend to attract people just like that. And that was the case for our front desk. And, just being very positive in the community, I think has helped. Our hygienists dropped off their resumes to us. So I didn't really look for them. They just kind of came to my office, which is amazing right now. So I've been really, really, really grateful for that. And just kind of doing working interviews, I think was very helpful. Both my dental assistants came from working interviews. And so I would have them come in for a day or two to temp with us and, just kind of feel out the personality, feel out the skill level. And that really helped versus a full on hire, because I basically let them know, we're going to try this out for a week or two and see if this is a good fit for both of us. And I think that's helped a lot.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed, in working interviews, what are the expectations that you set from the get-go to where it's week 3, you're hey, you changed?
Yeah, that actually a very interesting situation. So I did have one dental assistant that would temp for us so randomly. She was a friend, and it was very different when she was hired. When she was hired, I was like, your attitude's very different. It just kind of shifted. It ended up working itself out. She ended up having to move and everything. So, but I was like, oh gosh, I really thought this would continue on being positive as a actual hire. It's really hard. It's really hard to gauge people. That's been the hardest part is HR stuff or practice. The business stuff you can kind of figure out as you go, but the HR stuff is so much about being able to read people and being able to lead and communicate in a way that you're still friendly but respectable and people take you seriously without being too much of a buddy.
Yeah.
That's been really hard because I'm a very friendly, personable type of doc. I've always gotten along really well with my dental assistants as an associate and everything. But now that I'm an owner too, it's a tough balance between those two worlds,
Mm-hmm. Where do you find the boundary for that? Or how do people know? How does your team know that's Pooja's boundary?
It's how I communicate about it. I'm really sorry about that, but what time are you going to be here? What is your estimated time of arrival? You still have a job. You still have a commitment. I always like to tell my team, I like to see my team members really taking pride in their work, and taking the extra step to do a good job means that you care. And that's all I can ask of you is do the best you can every day. And I want to meet you with that too, as your boss, as your leader, and as the practice owner of this office, So I've had to myself, had to pep it up. Sometimes I bring that heaviness into the day and I'm there's so much going on. It's just overwhelming. And I've had to realize that, okay, that all permeates through the whole office. And I don't have an office manager right now. So having to do that aspect of micromanaging different roles is not comfortable for me. I hate doing it. And I don't want to become a control freak. And I just want everyone to do their job properly. And then I won't have to be hey, did you do this? Did you do that? And that is all built on trust. If I can trust that you're going to do this correctly and do this on time, then I won't have to double check on it all the time,
Mm-hmm. Right now, you're double checking it all.
Yeah, it's too much. I can't do it all the time. So I'm trying to just keep it at bay as much as I can, for sure. It's really hard. Just by nature, I think dentists are a little bit nitpicky about stuff. And I think we have to tone it down because you don't want to be micromanaged yourself. No one wants that. And I don't want to have to do that with my team. So I just say, we're adults here. These are your job expectations. Make sure you do them on a daily basis and then we're good.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Interesting. There's something you mentioned earlier, morning meetings. How do you run your morning huddles or your morning meetings? What do they look like?
Initially, it was just bananas. It was crazy because there were so many changes. Every night I'd go home and be oh my God, we have to do all these things completely differently. This was a bad idea. And I started saying, okay, I cannot solely run this meeting every morning. It was too much. So I was okay, front desk, you need to present. Come in, let's go ahead and say good morning and have a quick little chit chat. And then front desk lets us know about what things are going on the general schedule. So-and-so needs paperwork and so-and-so wants to come in 15 minutes early. And this is the estimated production on the schedule today. this is our month to date, and maybe these are opportunities on the schedule. And then my dental assistant, they take turns. So one does Mondays and Wednesdays, and the other one does Tuesdays, Thursdays. And so they present the patients like so and so has allergy to sulfa or something like that, and does not like laying back. Just make sure you are aware of that and all of it. And then I kind of talk about system updates. Like I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to start using the task list instead of like making weird blocks on the schedule. That's kind of how we run meeting, or we're supposed to. And some days it's not like that. Some days everyone is running late and we're just doing the meeting in the hallway real quick and we're just flying. But as we get more systems in place and have like a dedicated office manager at some point, it would be nice to like offload some of that burden to the office manager eventually. But I do like to try my best to end on a really positive note. Like that's like something I'm like, okay, I know all that was a lot. And like I was kind of telling you, maybe you're doing a bad job at this, but hope you have a good day. Here's the quote of the day or something like that.
Yeah.
Or we try to laugh about it and have a good day.
Nice. Is it near the future? Where do you see yourself like, let's bring on an office manager or promoting?
Probably the next couple months would be nice if I can swing it. If I have enough like interest from my front desk and kind of elevating their job role into that, I would love that. I just don't have, I think I need to get more systematic with my own things that I have to offload those tasks to somebody without being like very scattered about it. So that's like super important right now.
That's actually really smart. You understanding it first and then giving it to someone, right? Instead of like, hey, you understand it for me.
I want an office manager, but I don't even know how to translate to them what to do. Like, can you just do all these things?
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually that would be really nice. I see why older generations of dentists immediately got an office manager. Like they opened their office and like the first person they hired was an office manager.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I don't want to have to constantly make sure the utility type stuff and make sure the cleaners show up on time, make sure we're collecting the mail every day or like, just like random things. And I'm just like, there's a running list of stuff. But at some point it would be nice to have that. I think it's good to have a little bit of not divide, but like having to be a dentist and also like constantly managing HR stuff is very taxing. It's a lot, but I know like most people do it, but it would be nice to kind of have someone to do that with.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's super true. If we can dive into the business a little bit right now, and since July, have you broken even?
Since July, yeah, we're out there. Mm-hmm.
Could I ask what's the break even number?
We're still working on that exactly. The part about figuring out overheads and now adding people is always really challenging. So I'll get back to you about that number. Right.
Gotcha. Right now, overhead is how much would you say percentage wise?
Overhead right now is probably, my gosh, this month was crazy because I hired 3 people. So overhead right now is probably, 30 to 40%.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty good. 30 to 40% overhead. And so right now you're located where?
We're located in Morrisville, in North Carolina, like right outside of Raleigh-Durham area.
Okay. And so you found that location. Is it a complete build out or is it like a ground up kind of a build out or how does it look?
We were a cold dark shell. So it was an existing like medical building and it had a anchor tenant. They're the owners of the building and they're an OBGYN. And I actually came across this property because it was like one of my parents' friends told me about it. And he was like, yeah, it's a great intersection, tons of traffic and like visibility and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay, let me check it out. I also came to find out like the first floor is owned by oral surgeons. So I was like, okay, so eventually it's going to become more foot traffic. I initially kind of envisioned being in like a shopping mall type area, like a plaza, where I was like, had more foot traffic, because that's kind of where I'd always worked at places like that. I was next to a restaurant or next to a fresh market or something like that. So then now being in like a medical building, I'm like, how are people going to find me? How are they going to see me? Kind of took the gamble. It's definitely a little bit more challenging to get folks to see us, but we're on a main road. And, I've just done different things to kind of create more visibility.
So you're upstairs?
I'm upstairs. I'm on the 2nd floor. So it's actually really nice because you don't see any like street traffic at all. And like probably a couple months after I signed, I actually had an endodontist who wanted to sign next door to me. And that worked out great because I was like, okay, we'll have something going on. And I don't do any endo. So that was wonderful. And so we have a steady amount of folks coming in. We're right inside several neighborhoods actually, and on two very big main roads.
Nice, Pooja. So then, first of all, who did you go with for your loan?
I actually use Provide. They honestly have very good rates. And that's kind of the direction I was in. I really didn't have a lot of money to move around. So I had to go with the best structured loan. And I had heard good things about them too. So it was between three different banks. And I decided to go with Provide.
Okay, nice. And then typically, if you want to give me a range or anything, but how much was the whole loan?
The whole loan had to increase. It was like 810 to start for everything. And then it had to increase to 852. So we had to bump it up quite a bit with construction, and supply costs like skyrocketed while I was like doing things with tariffs and all kinds of stuff. And we ended up kind of doing a slightly larger space by a couple hundred square feet. So that added to it as well.
Wow. Okay, so then construction, supplies, you mentioned supplies didn't go as smooth. Did construction go pretty smoothly or did they both
Oh,
go
I
smooth?
think so. I think construction went pretty as smooth as it can go. Like I've heard awful things. So really, this was not so bad. Then we had some delays on opening because we didn't have doors. Doors didn't come in on time. They were like back ordered or something crazy. We opened actually with a TCO instead of like an actual CO, but we were fine. We had dummy doors on the walls, basically. Like we didn't have our actual doors. They were like black doors, but we were fine. We were operational, and we hit the ground running, and we haven't really lost steam since then, which is great.
All right, nice. And then with your branding and your marketing, or just your branding right now, who'd you go
Yeah.
with for that?
Branding, I actually use Fiverr, which is like an outsourcing company. It's like a freelance graphic design company. And my brother is in commercial real estate. And I asked him, I was like, hey, who'd you use to do your logo for your company? He was like, oh, I use this. And I was like, what? And I spent $35 on my branding. Uh,
That's
so
nice.
so like my logo, the colors and everything was kind of, the colors were kind of like my vibe. And then they kind of matched the hex code to what I was like looking for. But yeah, $35 for my branding.
That's
Um,
incredible. Nice. Okay. So then
yeah,
you with your branding, you went with Fiverr. And then when did you or did you ever hire a marketing agency or company or
did. I started with one marketing agency and it was absolutely a terrible experience. And then I quickly shifted over as soon as I could figure out another plan to another marketing company. And now I use a company that I've been pretty happy with. They're King SEO. And it was a recommendation from Ideal Practices. And one of my friends from dental school uses them. So I was like, well, I guess I'll give them a try. I haven't really heard about them. But super nice owner, Brian King. He's super nice and very genuine. And she had very good things to say about them. And then I also talked to a couple other folks that worked with him as well. And I was like, you know what? Anything will be better than my first company. So I decided to like take the leap of faith.
what makes a good marketing company for you? Meaning like this is the stuff on the checklist that I like.
So initially, it was not recommended to reach out to this company. It wasn't one of the first three that was recommended, but I kept seeing it on Facebook, like, oh, this. And so I was like, hey, well, can you connect me with so and so? And they were like, yeah, we can, but just, just so you know, this is kind of the vibe you might get. And that's exactly what I got. Like, what's the best way to describe it? Like, in an interview, when you talk to the owner or like the marketing advisors or anything, that is a really big tell on like what the rest of your interactions are going to be like. And I should have taken that for what it was worth because it was not a positive experience from the very first interaction. It was very brash, very rude, very honestly disrespectful. And I thought, oh, well, I can deal with not a super friendly personality if they do a good job. Like, I don't care. You're nice to me as long as you like help me bring in new patients. But I realized that I do actually value respect and kindness from any type of company I work with. And I would hope they expect the same from me. But I also kept getting multiple new advisors a lot of delays in my website. Like it seemed like a terrible place to work. I was like, I feel bad for these people. Like they're constantly getting fired or replaced and it's not a good smooth transition. Like I would get a new advisor and the way I would find out is they would use the same advisor's email, but then they would sign it as a different person. And I'd be like, wait, are you so-and-so? And they're like, oh no, I'm your new advisor. And I'm like, it was just a mess. And if you weren't happy with something, you were kind of met with a lot of like arrogance and like, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. This person was well aware that you still had to pay out the 6 months.
Interesting.
Yeah. So she like, you can leave. And she knew she'd still get paid. So
Yeah. Interesting. And so the new company,
the new company is King SEO.
I never heard of them.
Yeah, I hadn't either. That's why I was like, I don't know. And so I was kind of reluctant on it. But I was like, you know what? They're not like an arm and a leg. Like some of these dental marketing companies like want 10 grand a month. You can't be ranked on Google without 10 grand a month. And they want like super high spends on everything, like ad spend for Google or like costs so much for Facebook marketing or anything like that. So they seemed very genuine. They were very reasonably priced and they gave me like realistic like expectations. I decided to give them a chance. I was like, well, it's a month-to-month contract. It's not like I'm stuck in it for 6 to 12 months. I'll give it a try and see how it goes. And it was truly within 2 weeks, so much better.
That's awesome. So then right now, how many new patients are you getting currently monthly?
Every month, about 70 new patients.
70?
70, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
I think so far, like this month has been crazy because we've had snow days and everything. We're already at 72 patients. And in December, we saw 87 new patients on 3 clinic days. So we're going up. So that's great to see that growth and really be able to get that momentum going, which has been truly like such a blessing.
Yeah. And you're open how many days out of the week?
In 2025, we were 3 days a week and I was temping on those other 2 days. And then in 2026, we are open 4 days a week and occasional Fridays if we have patients that are really requesting it.
Gotcha. And that's the goal? Are you going to stay there or you want to open 5, 6?
No, I can't do 6 days a week. I have young kids, so I can never. But I'd like to be open 8 to 2 on Fridays. So planning to do that, I just have to make sure like I have an assistant that can help me on those days consistently. And so just trying to get like the logistics in order for that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Interesting. Nice. And so what companies, besides marketing, right? What companies from the moment you decided to work with them to now have like exceeded your expectations, if any?
That's a great question. I mean, Vatek, actually, my x-rays and my sensors and everything, they have been amazing. One of my sensors went down and they overnighted me a new one. And that's crucial because I really don't have a lot of sensors on a new practice. They're very expensive. They didn't question anything. They weren't like, take pictures and send me a video of why it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. They were like, okay, we'll remote in. Here we go. Remote in, try it out. Okay, we're sending you a new one. It was like literally a 5-minute process. And that was amazing. And then anytime we've had any issues with any equipment or training people, they've been so nice and wonderful at teaching how to use it properly. That's been really good. They weren't like, here's the user manual and just like read it. So that's been awesome.
Nice. Okay. That's really good. For your practice management software and your phones, who do you have?
For practice management software, I'm using Oryx. And for my phones and also my AI call and everything is Mango.
Okay, nice. So marketing, practice management software, any other third-party softwares that you use or no?
Yeah, I actually use Nada Payments. Oh, Nada Payments has been great too. I've been really, really happy with that. Roman, like I literally email the company, it's him, and he troubleshoots everything. It's amazing. Super quick to help. They, will walk you through everything. And it's like been I haven't had any issues, which is amazing. Because making sure that terminal works every day is so critical to our practice. So it's been great.
Nice. That's wonderful. Now, can you give us some advice when it comes to asking for advice on forums like Dental Town, Facebook groups, things like that? How much of it is like, man, I need to take this advice and run with it? And how much of it is like, take it with a grain of salt?
It depends on who are the members. I think that's super critical. It's like, if it's mostly like people trying to sell you something or like sell their business, you may not get the most truthful feedback or like the most honest opinion. I feel like you just have to have like really good, either a really good mentor or like really good friend. Like if you're a startup, make sure you have a friend who is a startup too. I mean, there's no one else who understands that experience, and like they may be able to steer you in the right direction or steer you away from crazy stuff that you would have no idea is bad. But I would say like probably 50% of these groups are a little disingenuous, you know? I think that's really hard because you have no idea what to expect in these groups. So, making sure it's like if it's doctors only group or something like that, sometimes that's helpful. And then some of these doctors get like kickbacks for talking about certain companies too, So you kind of have to go with it and just kind of vet things for yourself. And you have to do a lot of figuring out on your own and kind of learning the hard way. And I did too. Like I learned the hard way. I kind of went with the praise of this marketing company from Facebook people. And I think there's probably something behind that because I think a lot of people have had also very negative experiences, but they're not supposed to talk about it places because they've been threatened.
Interesting, interesting. So you recommend having like offline converse, or for example, if like I heard this and I'm like, hey Pooja, can I talk to you?
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there are people who screenshot or whatever a comment you may make and send it to the person. Like look what this person's saying about you. And then that company reaches out to that person and is like, this is illegal. You cannot defame us or something like that. You know what I mean? So like people are not always giving you their honest opinion. So it's better to say like, oh, if you want to talk about this more, just DM me.
yeah,
And even
interesting.
in that, like you're still in danger
Yeah.
of someone trying to like threaten you.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, one of the last questions we wanted to ask you is if an owner listening is in a similar season to where you were, beginning of July, like with your older employees, also at the same time, just having a kid maybe, and then you're just kind of like thinking of the whole process. What's one move they could make this week that would actually help?
Kind of mapping out what you want certain people in your practice to be doing, which is honestly very hard to do until you're like in it. People have to know what their expectations are. They can't just be the front desk. Like you can't just do that. Like, you know what I mean? Even though they've been front desk somewhere else doesn't mean that they know how to do it for you. So you have to know how to like train people to do things the way that you prefer it to be done, and just communicating those expectations to them properly helps everyone work together really well. Like, hey, every morning I would like you to do these things. By the end of the day, I would like you to do these things. So you're not like upset that something's not done. Well, you didn't really tell them that was supposed to be done. So you have to be very humble and learn from your own mistakes very early on, and not like you have to be confident. And obviously going into, you have to be confident about being a leader, but you also have to be very humble and be willing to make mistakes, but learn from them and do better. And that's, I think, the biggest thing.
Yeah. Nice. Wonderful. And so before we wrap up, our last guest left a question for you. This is Dr. Sana Yusuf. And she asked, how have you set boundaries between your personal and professional life to allow your practice to grow?
So there's been a couple things, but I recently discovered Mango Voice. Margot, the voice assist, is kind of like an AI assistant. A lot of times people would call like right at 5 to get off of work, and I'd be trying to shoot out the door to go pick up my kids from daycare. And I would literally like double take, like, should I go back, get the call, or like, oh, or should I be on time to pick them up? And so I was like, God, this is like awful. And I kept missing a lot of calls. And then it's a chase trying to find them and get a good time to like actually get them on the phone. And so I decided to do the Mango Voice AI Assist. And so it picks up the calls and like literally grabs their information and creates like a call report. So it says, hey, if patient is interested in an appointment on Tuesday afternoon, they have this insurance and they have this problem. And it's so nice. And in the morning, either myself or my front desk will call them back. So it's not like I'm missing a call. They're not going straight to voicemail, and they feel like they're still heard. And that has helped tremendously for me because I'm like, okay, it's okay. Margot's going to pick up the call. I can go pick up my kids. So that's been really nice. I still struggle with this. And what I try to do, like when I'm trying to leave the office as quick as I can so I can pick up my kids from daycare, I literally say out loud, this is a tomorrow problem. This is not a right now problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it out loud and I get out that door. But that's one thing that I've tried to create boundaries on. I'm like, no, I got to pick up my kids. Like, cannot deal with this right now, but we'll take care of it tomorrow. That's small, but I think it helps on a daily basis to do that for me. And I try to work on practice stuff once my kids are asleep. I do their bedtime and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do dinner and then I'm going to work on some business stuff and some practice stuff. But I try not to do it around them a lot so that I can really try to be where I am and be in the moment.
I like that. Interesting that you say it out loud. This is a
Yeah.
tomorrow problem.
Yes.
I like
Well,
that.
maybe I sometimes I don't say it out loud, like, but sometimes I catch myself. I'm like, nope, this is a tomorrow problem. I gotta go.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to start doing that. I like that a lot. So, what's one question you would like to ask for the next guest to answer?
If you could do it differently in your first 3 months, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. Awesome. Pooja, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Lumina Dentistry. That's the same username for Facebook as well. You can contact me there.
Nice. Awesome. So that's all going to be in the show notes below. And Pooja, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Yes, thank you.